Okay, we're just going to wait a minute for everybody else to join us. So welcome to your degree and diploma integration talk. We're just going to hang on for a minute. I can see lots of people joining us. Welcome. Welcome to your Norland College degree and diploma integration talk. If you're just joining, don't worry, you've not missed anything. We're just going to hang on a minute until more people join us. Welcome if you've just logged in to our Zoom for degree and diploma integration, and those of you that have been here a while, you've heard me say this a few times already, but we're just going to just wait on another 20 seconds for the last few people to join us. We are expecting just a few more. Okay. I think we'll make a start. So welcome everybody to your Norland College degree and diploma integration talk. We're so sorry that we can't talk to you face to face. We really enjoy meeting you all at the open days, but you will have plenty of opportunity to ask questions. So, please don't worry about that. Thanks, Lucy. So before we start, please just bear in mind that this session is being recorded, and that means you can potentially watch it over again if we make a comment and you want to just revisit, so please do. In order just to help us with the technology, if you can make sure that your camera is off and your microphone is muted, that would be lovely. Your questions are being gathered and they will be answered at the end. So there will be opportunity for Q&A. You can ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thanks, Lucy. So first of all, we're just going to introduce ourselves. And before we get going with that, I just want to say wonderful news. Those of you who are going to come and be our next batch of students for set 45, we've had it, straight from central government that nannies are allowed to work during the pandemic. So good choice that you've made. And, people who are leaving university at the minute, they're unfortunately struggling to get jobs. Recently, I met somebody who was moving house and their furniture remover person was actually a pilot. Can you believe that? The skills that are out there and the people, who are highly skilled, very professional, are not able to get work. You as a nanny will not have a problem with that. So well done, you're making good choices already. So with that, I'm just going to introduce my colleagues and the lovely students that we've got here. They're going to introduce themselves. So Nancy, do you want to go first?
Hello, it says I'm head, but I'm actually deputy head of set 43. And as you can see, I'm following my mother's footsteps. She's an all-rounder. She trained in set 10.
And Holly, are you there?
Yeah, so like it says, I'm in second year and I have a role as a student content producer, which means I work with Tilly and Dan and the media team, which is great fun. Yeah.
Thank you. And Sky?
Yeah, hi, I'm also in second year in set 43. This year I'm the academic rep for my set, so that's really interesting. And I'm really excited for the next 2 years at Norland. Yeah.
Thank you. And Lucy?
Thank you very much. So my name is Lucy Krebs. I'm a senior lecturer and the student engagement manager. I'm also a Norlander myself, and I was in set 27, so that gives you an idea of how long ago that was, sadly. And I've worked as a private nanny, and actually just above my shoulder here, you can see my former charge, Sienna. I looked after her from when she was 10 months old to when she went to school, and we're still in touch now. She was my bridesmaid in 2017. And horrifyingly, on Friday, she turns 16. So she really is, she's a grown up now, pretty much. I was then a senior early years practitioner at Norland Nursery. And I've just realized that the picture that I got from my key family when I left is behind me as well. That is not designed, but very fortunate. And I returned to Norland to lecture in 2013, and it's something that I really love doing.
Thanks, Lucy. And I'm Debbie Buck. I'm the Acting Head of Learning and Teaching. And I've been here at Norland for, well, I'm in my 6th year now. Time goes too quick. I've worked in early years for almost 20 years now. And I've worked in various guises, from working in nurseries, managing nurseries, to schools, working as a part of the advisory team, early years advisory team with a local authority. I then went to work in FE and now HE. So I've done a little bit of everything. Jo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jo Brimble. I'm the placement manager for Norland, and I've got a career that's very similar to Debbie's. I've worked in a variety of different childcare settings. I've worked for social services, and then I also took the teaching route as an assessor and a lecturer for a big college based in Bristol. I'm lucky enough to be the person who helps to recruit all the families, and we've got a large variety of different settings based in Bath, and I've got a good knowledge of the local area, being a Bathonian myself.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks, Lucy. Okay, so we just want to give you a little outline in terms of how the degree and the diploma work in tandem. So the way that we lay out your 3 years is that your degree and the diploma are very interweaved. So you'll have your degree sessions where you're going to get all that underpinning theory, and then alongside of that you're going to get your diploma sessions, which tell you how to apply that theory into practice and what that will look like. So we do lots of playing, lots of role play, lots of making, but while you're doing that all the time, you're thinking about, well, why am I doing this? What's the point? So it's to allow that reflection, that higher level thinking skills, so that you then can, do really well when you do your final year and you do your dissertation. So a dissertation will be an early years topic of your choice. And we support you. Obviously, you'll get a supervisor to help you with that in your 3rd year. And it's something that I know that the lecturers really look forward to, because it means that we can work really closely. Yeah, I can see Lucy's nodding. We love it, don't we? We do work as a team when you do your dissertation. And we become as engrossed and enthralled with it as you do. So it's something that we love to do here. So, your dissertation can help you with thinking about what you might want to do in the future, because you've chosen your topic. So maybe that's something you feel really passionately about. And in your 3rd year, in that final trimester, you'll have a whole trimester given over to the NQN team, who will spend time with you preparing you for your NQN year. So you'll do 3 years in college, and then remember, you do that 4th year in a paid post, and we support you with that as well. It's not as scary as it seems. So just remember that if you've missed the Discover Norland presentation, please do go on and have a look. You can watch it on demand. So that was a session that was on Saturday. So if you missed it or want to watch it again, then please do. Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, so as we like to brag with our website, we have a degree with a difference, because we've got our BA Hons alongside our practical Norland Diploma. So the degree is 3 years long, and it focuses on how babies and young children develop and learn, their well-being, health, inclusion, working with parents and professional development. You name it, we cover it. And what we really pride ourselves on is the application of theory into practice. So giving you all the theory information that you might want, so that you can understand why children, for example, are behaving the way they are. The teaching draws on many disciplines, including psychology, neuroscience, child health, philosophy, social sciences, and education, and everything in between. We're very much about empowering children, giving children a voice, and making sure that our graduates are thinking about that when they're working with them. So we've got some examples of modules here. We've got the Making Sense of Children's Behaviour module, and in that we cover, as you might expect, how we respond to children's behaviour, but also why children behave the way they do. Because if you can seek out the why of why a child's behaving that way, they're probably not going to have behaviour that you need to address necessarily. All right. So I also thought about concepts of development and learning, and that's to do with child observation, how children learn, as well as what they learn. And then we have thriving in a diverse society and working with families and communities, where there's a lot of crossover because we think about not only different types of children and how we work with them, but different types of families as well. So I'd like to invite Holly to just give you some highlights of these particular modules so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved all of them, and the teaching is so in depth. I mean, we've looked at sleep, we've looked at the impact routines have, and the lecturers always are really challenging, getting you to think how that would feel for the child, which widens my perspectives of it all. So it's really, really great.
Thank you very much. And Sky, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed just learning about children's development, how they learn and that kind of things. That was really interesting, especially in concepts of development and learning. So yeah.
Thank you. And Nancy?
Yeah, I was just going to add, we've recently begun our working with families and communities module. And I think something that's really important is being able to put what you learn in theory into your practice. And so obviously we go through working with families and communities, you talk about lots of different scenarios that might occur. And then once you get into a placement or working with a family, you find that these scenarios do happen and you learn how to tackle them or work with them. So.
Lovely, thank you. And what I've really enjoyed about teaching these modules in particular is that the behaviour, thriving in a diverse society and working with families and communities modules are all second year modules, and you can see how far students have come in terms of their criticality, challenging me in lectures and all that kind of thing, in a respectful way, of course, so that we can have an academic discussion about it. I introduced a particular theory called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and a student raised their hand and said, Lucy, I don't agree with this. And when you get that kind of critical thinking, it's fantastic, because it's just like, yes, disagree, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with things like thriving in a diverse society, we can really look at current issues. So we've been focusing a lot on Black Lives Matter, looking at race and racism and how we discuss those things within the early years. So we're looking at really current topics right throughout the training as well.
Okay, so I'm going to just talk a little bit about the practical side of what we do. So remember, you'll be doing a degree and a diploma at the same time. So you need to consider workload. It is hard work. Your days are very busy and very, very full. So the sorts of things we do during your diploma training, we're going to talk about play. As a nanny, and when we work with children, that's what we do, is play all the time. And through children's play, we are supporting them to manage their emotions, to do that self-regulation. We're helping them and supporting them to, build on the skills that they've got through development and their physical development and their cognitive development. So that play and learning module is really, really important. It underpins everything we do. It's the core of your work. So you can see that a lot of things actually run hand in hand and in tandem with the degree modules. So we've got supporting development and learning, and that's a module that Holly was talking about before. That's where you're going to be thinking about observing children and what does it mean? What are you actually seeing? What is that child telling you? So they might not be being very verbal, but what is their body language telling you? So we will teach you how to engage with that and become in tune with the children that you're working with. And similarly, they're supporting families and communities. As a nanny, you are part of a family, but also a wider community. And what can that community do for you? And what can you do for them? So everything we do is about partnership and working together. Health and well-being is really important. So we talk all the way from what does a good diet look like, the importance of sun cream and some debate around that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, those childhood illnesses that you need to be aware of, and also obviously new ones that are coming to the fore. Obviously, everybody's favourite is the sewing, and we have students who are complete novices that have never sewn before to students who are real experts. And the beauty of sewing is that you can all share your skills together. And even, during these challenging times, we are running sewing lectures. The groups are all much smaller, but, we're still doing lots of beautiful creating and hand sewing. So some really lovely projects taking place there. In terms of food and nutrition, we take you from basic cookery skills, and yes, we do teach you to boil an egg, I'm afraid, because you need to understand how to do it correctly. you know, there is a way of doing it, and there is a Norland way of doing it, and we teach you how to do things correctly. So in food and nutrition, you'll be talking a lot about nutritional values, safe working practices. You know, when you go and work in families' kitchens, you need to work in a clean, tidy fashion. And so we teach you those skills right from day one, and they progress then up into where we have the great Norland Bake Off, which the staff enjoy immensely because we get to taste about 100 cakes. It's just the best day ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucy agrees.
It was a good day.
It really is.
Favourite work day.
Food and nutrition block just looks absolutely magnificent. I'm sure that some of you have seen them on Twitter. So of course, we've already touched on employment training. So that's where you'll be prepared for your NQN. You'll revisit some of the things that you did really quite early on in your training, like paediatric first aid. That's when you'll access the defensive driving. And we have lots of different guest lectures coming in just to prepare you for your NQN year. And of course, with all those things, they're the things that sets our degree apart. That's what makes our degree different. So we've got our diploma and our degree running hand in hand. So students, do any of you want to add anything in terms of your experience of your diploma? So Holly, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I really love it because we learn a lot of the theoretical stuff, and then actually being able to put it into practice it's given me quite a lot of confidence within placement, or just in general working with children, because you've learned about it and you've put it into practice. So the two combine together to really promote like confidence and just kind of great knowledge.
Yeah, indeed, thanks. And what about you, Sky?
Yeah, I agree with what Holly's saying. I also love to sew and cook. So being able to already do those kind of things, the lecturers are always pushing me to do more, especially in sewing, because everyone gets to do what they're comfortable with. And so people who've never done it before start and do more simple, or learn to do the more complicated things slowly. And then if you're more confident with it, they'll push you further, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, we do indeed. Good point, that. Thank you. And what about you, Nancy?
Yeah, I think kind of just, you know, adding on to what Sky said, and Debbie, you touched on it, not everyone will arrive with kind of amazing sewing skills or cooking skills. And you really notice that in the first week or 2 weeks of cooking and sewing, you're not going to be expected to make a whole roast or a whole lasagna for a family from week one. You start, and that's what Norland is amazing at. They take everyone and put them at the same level, whether you've sewn before or not, and you learn the basic stitches. And like Debbie said, first couple of weeks, you'll learn to boil an egg, or you'll learn to make, you know, simple dishes, and then you'll build on from there. I mean, I've already done a year of Norland, and I definitely have more improvement to go in my sewing, but that's the amazing thing. And Sky's already said, the assignments will cater for all, and you can still reach a distinction even if you don't believe you're as good at sewing as others. But obviously it doesn't matter, because Norland is just there to make you the best nanny you can be.
Yeah.
That's a really, sorry, that's a really lovely point, Nancy. And just to build on that, when I started at Norland, I could not sew at all, and my sewing teacher, if she was still around, would definitely emphasize that point really quite vehemently. However, in 2017 I made my own wedding dress. So these are the skills that you can learn at Norland, you know, because that was just following a pattern, and that's something that I learned as part of my training. So don't feel like you have to come with lots of skills already in place. These are the things that you learn with us.
Indeed, absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Lucy.
Okay, so Jo.
Brilliant. So we are here to provide you with placement experience. So I always say this is the best part of the course. Over the 3 years, we gradually build up your skills. We start off in the nurseries and the schools, and you can see a list here of all the different experiences that we can offer you, okay? As you go through your training in your second year, you start to work more with the families and with the big residential, where the students will actually go and live with a family for a 6-week block. It's a challenging day. We've just had one set just completed, and it gives them, really installs the skills that we've been teaching them over this period of time ready to take them on to their final part of the journey. In the third year, our placements are catered around their dissertation subject. And again, we look to continue to support them, and there may be top-up placements along this journey as well. Some people want to have chances to go to the maternity ward. Some people might have a specialism within the forest schools. And all of these experiences just give you a wide range. So maybe in the future you decide, after you've had time being a Norland nanny, you want to do something else. You might reflect back to your placement opportunities and the fact that you enjoyed working in a special educational needs provision, and this is something that you'd like to explore further. The 3 students we've got in today have all had a variety of different experiences in their first year. Nancy, tell us about your experience with the toddlers at your nursery.
So yeah, as Jo said, the first placement I had through Norland was in a toddler room, and I'd had experiences in different ages before joining Norland, but I think the amazing thing about the placements we get during Norland is that whether you've had a huge varied amount of experience before or just with a couple of ages, you will be able to have a varied experience while you're at Norland. So my nursery was amazing, and just like any other nursery, it was unique, and you find different children with different learning needs and different supportive needs, and I just found it really beneficial because I was nervous to start my first placement, but actually you realise that the placement team are so helpful, and you have a one-to-one placement officer who will be there at the end of an email during your placement for any other questions or queries. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'll always remember it because it was my first placement at Norland.
Sky, tell us about your forest school experience.
It was really interesting. I'd done a bit of forest school in a primary school, just with reception class, and going from that to working with under 2s in a forest school was very interesting. Some of them loved it, some of them didn't. Being out in the cold in the middle of winter probably wasn't their favourite thing, but some of them absolutely loved just sitting in the mud and all that kind of thing, and it was just amazing to kind of be part of it. So I really enjoyed that.
And Holly had a different experience where she went to a primary school.
Yeah, and we were there just before Christmas. So there was lots of glitter, lots of learning songs for the Nativity, and it was incredible to see, even within a class of 30 children, the amount of diversity in learning needs and abilities, and so it was great to support a variety of pupils within that. Yeah.
And these 3 students are in their second year, so the next placement when they return after half term will be with families. So they'll begin building at their experiences. I know that actually Nancy's going off to a special educational needs provision. So again, we're looking at all the other different things that you can experience whilst you're with us at Norland.
Thanks, Jo. Jo, could you just elaborate in terms of what happens on the maternity and the paediatric ward? Because I think that's really something different that we offer that maybe other universities and colleges don't.
We are very lucky. Norland is the only university that they'll accept students from outside of obviously maternity. So they allow our students, we have forms that we have to complete from their HR department. The students get an opportunity to do a week on the maternity ward, and even some students would choose to do this in their own holiday time, so they'll give up their time, because obviously these are specialist places and they're also limited. The paediatric ward, again, we are the only students, and you work alongside the hospital play specialists. This is for a longer placement. This is for a 4-week placement, and again the students get to shadow the hospital play specialists, and they get involved with all sorts of different consultations. They get to see a variety of different circumstances, providing not only support for the children, but quite often for the parents as well, who are going through quite a traumatic time and actually sometimes just want somebody to talk to, or just somebody to sit down and play a game with their child. So it's not just learning the childcare skills, it's also learning how to deal with parents who may be in a distressed state, and just having that lovely communication and that empathy with somebody who may be at that particular time having a struggle. We've been lucky as well that the RUH has continued to accept our students through COVID. So we've currently, when we return back, we'll have another 8 students going off to the maternity ward.
Thanks, Jo. It's just worth elaborating, isn't it? And Jo, I think you can confirm, can't you, that actually for our students, finding placements during COVID has not been an issue, has it? Everybody has been out on placement. Everybody's had opportunities.
We've been really lucky that we've had a good wealth of different experiences. And although obviously some primary schools may have chosen not to have strangers coming in, which is completely understandable, we had such a vast array of placements on our books. And we even took on 2 new ones. And this is since COVID, so we're still doing really well, where our name gets spread. And we get approached quite often by different placements, especially new ones that have just opened up, but we only take on establishments that get good and outstanding with Ofsted. So once they've maybe had their first inspection, that's when we can add them to our big wealth of different experiences. And we love to be approached by new people all the time, and it's always great to build our portfolio of placements.
Lovely, thanks, Jo.
Okay, so there you go. You get a minimum of 6 different placements. On the whole, you tend to have 9 different placements, but we have 6. And again, this obviously depends on your placement journey, and that just lays out again all the different types of placements that we have and how we build you up to make sure that you are feeling experienced and comfortable to work with a family, which obviously is a lot different to working in the schools and nursery, because obviously the spotlight becomes straight onto you. There you've got their statistics about how many hours that you've spent at placement. So you've got 1,216 hours whilst you're studying, and they make up about 50% of the course. So a lot of this, as previously been said, is taking your theory and putting it into practice.
Thanks, Jo.
Okay, so also taking place this week, we have live Q&As from student support, and I would really recommend that if you currently have student support that you go and see that, because our student support team are absolutely incredible here at Norland. We have a lot of tailored teaching and learning to meet a variety of learning needs. On Wednesday, there's the live Q&A for admissions and accommodation, so that's probably everything that you guys want to know at the moment if you're thinking of applying in September. And of course, the all important fees, student finance and bursaries. On Thursday, you have your careers and employability live Q&A. And on Friday, there's the speak to our students, who will give you the complete lowdown on their student experience. Okay, so this final slide is to for you to ask questions. So you can do that through the Q&A function in Zoom. And there is no such thing as a silly question, which we'll emphasise throughout your training if you do decide to come and study with us.
Brilliant. Thank you all for your contributions there. Really, really interesting. We've got some questions that have come in, so I will ask them. So please do keep sending them in. I will start with you, Lucy. Are there any skills you'd recommend we have before starting at Norland?
My only thing that I would really emphasise before you come to Norland is being absolutely sure that you would like to be a nanny. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but as long as you've got experience with children, you have an understanding of what working with children entails, that would be all I said that you need to come with. Obviously, there are things that, if you are already sew, for example, then, it will, as Nancy said, set you up for your first sewing session, but you will get all the skills that you need as part of your training, and that would be the only thing that I really emphasize as a need, I think. What do you think, Deb?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, although we do, we obviously teach you to be able to work with children in any environment, but remember, what you're coming to Norland for is to do something very different, which is to be in a privileged position and to be in somebody's home with family and children. And that can actually, honestly, be quite isolating. So you need to reflect on what your end game is. What is that going to look like for you? I would agree, Lucy. You need to want to work with children and be a nanny.
Mm-hmm.
I think the hidden skills as well are things like energy, enthusiasm, ready to learn, adaptability, flexibility, all of these things, and a good sense of humour definitely works in this role.
Definitely a good sense of humour.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you all. Debbie, how many of the lectures are now online due to coronavirus?
So where we can, we're delivering face-to-face. So at the minute, the students will have one online lecture that has a learning outcome attached to it. But as well as that, you'll have a directed activity to do. So that's set up online. And you've got some independent study as well. So we've kept the online stuff as to a minimum. But because we're teaching face-to-face in much smaller groups, it was impossible not to have an element of online learning. So as I say, most students will have 3 hours maximum. Most of it is face-to-face. We've kept it face-to-face. And things like food and nutrition and sewing are all face-to-face. And how it's working is you're going to have a seminar type lecture, and then from that you go into 4 breakout groups with about 12 students. So actually it's really quite special that your input is really quite tailored for what you need in that small group, and it's facilitating those students who may be a little bit shy. They're now coming to the fore and really coming out of their shell because of those small groups.
Brilliant, thanks Debbie. We've got a really nice one here, and I'm going to ask Nancy first, and then we'll go around to Sky and Holly too. What would each of the students say is the best topic you study?
Oh wow, that is tricky.
No pressure, Nancy.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'll make a note.
It is going to sound staged, but it's so tricky to choose, because all of the whole degree is what I want to do and what I want to achieve. But I really am enjoying the current modules that we started recently. We touched on them quite a lot: the Thriving in a Diverse Society and Working with Families and Communities. And the thing I love about them is that they overlap so much. And for me, as a personal learning point of view, it really helps me understand the modules, because and not just these two, actually all of our modules will have links in some way to the diploma and the degree. But yeah, those two in particular at the moment especially, I'm really enjoying.
Thanks Nancy. Sky, how about you?
I would say probably making sense of children's behaviours was very interesting for me this year, because I've spent a lot of time working with children with additional needs, and so for me, studying that, I could really make sense of why they would feel like that. And it definitely made it, in my practice, I could get a lot closer to the children because I more understood what they were feeling, which I really liked. And I also love sewing because I just love to sew. So it's fun for me.
Great, thanks Sky. And Holly?
Yeah, I think like Nancy, it all works together, and I love it all, but I particularly have enjoyed the neuroscience elements of it, and kind of looking at the brain and understanding why a child might have an emotion and how it's dealt with really helped me to kind of understand and develop it further. So I think that for me is the bit I've loved the most.
Dan, can I also just add that the way that the modules are shaped, that in your first year you're getting all that underpinning stuff, so kind of it lays the foundation for what's to come, but all the modules actually are all quite interweaved, aren't they? They all kind of layer up and support each other. And, in terms of children don't develop one area at a time, do they? They develop lots of areas at the same time. So that's how our degree works, is that, our learning, as I say, the modules are all interweaved. There isn't anything that stands alone.
Brilliant, thank you. Jo, when do students do their first placement?
We've done it slightly different this year because of COVID. So this year we've actually run it where they've done a 2-week, which they've already completed coming up to half term, and they'll do a 2-week one that leads up to the Christmas holiday. But usually under normal circumstances, we do a 4-week placement, your first 4-week placement that leads up to the Christmas holidays. And your first year is very vital with your placements, because you'll have one, then you'll do another 4-week one in March, and then you finish your first year doing 2 taster placements. So again, you get 2 tastes of different experience. One of those will be within a family, and the second one again will be in a setting, but again something that you maybe want to have more of an influence over. So there is a point that we do choose your placements, but we get you every year to fill in a form to say what's your interest, and we try to match your placements alongside these interests.
Brilliant, thanks Jo. Debbie, how do you assess first years? Is it assignments or exams?
Well, I hate to say it, but in the first year it's a bit of combination of both. So in the first year there are a couple of exams. So you do have I know this sounds a really odd thing to say, but you have a sewing exam, and that's about being safe in the sewing room. Because if you can't keep yourself safe, then you can't keep children safe. So you do have a sewing exam, and the same with food and nutrition. You have a hygiene certificate that you need to do. So you kind of expect that, wouldn't you? But one of the modules, the professional development module, that is an exam, and you sit that one before you go out into placement, because a lot of that is around how you're going to communicate, keeping children safe. So there's a really strong element of safeguarding in there. So after that, then it's a combination of essays, presentations, we have a poster. So hopefully there's something for everybody, that it's not just all essay writing. And as you go through your course, we have something called the Viva, which is where you come and have a conversation. And students do really well at that, because it's a slightly different environment from when you're sitting a test or giving a presentation. There is that opportunity for dialogue. And when you do the holistic assessments, which is how we assess your diploma, again, that's very similar to a Viva. You'll create something, and then you'll come and talk to a lecturer about why you did it, what's the purpose of it, what is a child going to get from it, and what would you do differently. So we've got a nice spread of assessment.
So can I just add to that?
Yeah, of course.
So the reason we've got such a variety of assessments is because we've got such a diverse range of students with different learning needs and different ways of expressing themselves and their knowledge. So that's why we have such a variety, because I see further down there's a question that says, do you accept students with learning difficulties or additional needs such as ADHD? Absolutely. Like if this is something that you want to do and you have that passion for working with children, that student support is available for you, and you'll be supported to access that. And something I was really encouraged after the interview or during the interview is that if you do get learning support needs, if you do have learning support needs, sorry, is that you apply for DSA as early as you possibly can, so you can get all of those things in place ready for your assessments. Did you guys want to add anything about that?
Yeah, I was going to add that well, we've touched on it, how we have such a variety of assignments and different ways to kind of produce your own work, and I struggle with essay writing, and I don't know anyone so far who loves essay writing, but you know,
they do exist.
There will be some people, but for people joining, the word exam or essay or kind of presentation might shock people, but actually, as I've gone through, I've learned that I can get the support I need, especially from a tutor, but not necessarily your tutor, any lecturer. That's what's so lovely about the Norland community, is that because we're such a small, tight-knit group, you can really access help and support from anyone, and you know, as long as they have a free moment, it ties in with you. But I found the essays, and I still do find the essays tricky, but then the things like the diploma holistic assessments and presentations I find more enjoyable, because it's the way I learn, but it will be different for everyone, and I wouldn't let the kind of working side of it put you off, because you know, a degree is going to be tricky and it's going to be challenging at times, but actually if you're passionate, and I am passionate, and it's what I want to do, so I want to work for it. So
Great, thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Lucy and Debbie too. I'm going to ask this next one to Holly. How has the placements that you've done helped with your confidence and understanding?
Yeah, I think it's great to kind of, you can think you know something, but actually to put it into practice. And when you're teaching a child something or explaining something to them, and to see that kind of light bulb moment and their little face light up and see the confidence that you've installed in them is really great. And it kind of, you can work with practitioners within the settings and kind of learn from them. And I think it's putting things into practice kind of gives you that boost of confidence. Say, no, I can do this, and look, I've done this today. And you build a portfolio of evidence, and it kind of, you can look back and go, no, wow, like this is all the stuff I've learned, and this is the stuff I've done. So it really is incredible how it helps you build your confidence.
Great, thanks, Holly. Lucy, what makes a good personal statement?
Definitely one that's written by you. So sometimes they can be overly tutored, like if you go to your career advisor and they're taking you through everything that you need to include and all that kind of stuff, and it's very polished, it actually doesn't, it's not a very good reflection of you and your personality, what you enjoy and all that kind of stuff. I'm always most interested in the ones that talk about the experience that they've had with children, and also how their current study applies to what it is you want to do. So sometimes when people before they come to Norland will do 3 A levels that seem completely unrelated, and what I want to know is how you think that that will support you with working with children. And that's really the key thing, is I think sometimes people think about the next step, which is coming to Norland, but we're thinking about what you're going to do when you leave. So, you know, wanting to come and do a degree with us because you like the look of skid pan, for example, is probably not the best reason to go into career in childcare. So yeah, looking at that sort of enthusiasm, that passion, that little spark for working with children is what I look for in a personal statement.
Great, thanks, Lucy. Debbie, what age range does Norland specialise in? Is it more babies or slightly older children as well?
Well, it's an early childhood studies degree. So we go 0 to 8, but we have a real focus on working with babies because, that they are crucial years in terms of attachments and development. But we go runs 0 to 8.
There's another thing that's additional to placements, which is called the 25-hour newborn. And this is an experience that we get the students to independently seek. And this is to help them to realize that babies under 11 weeks are very different in terms of muscle tone and how to bath and change nappies, of a very, very newborn experience. And also to have that, again, that communication skills and that organizational skills to set this up. And they go and independently source family. And obviously, if we have inquiries come through the placements, this is also, we help students who are struggling a little bit.
Just to add to that, with older age ranges, there are some elements of the Norland Diploma that talk about differentiation for older age groups, and that's because as a nanny, crazily enough, the children grow. And so you have to be able to adapt activities sort of beyond that age 8 thing. But we talk about tailoring activities to the individual child primarily. So looking at what that child can do and then building on that. So age ranges are important to some extent if we're talking about general activities, but when we're thinking about children, they are all individual people with their own loves and dislikes and all of that kind of thing. So that's what we really emphasize throughout the training.
Great, thank you.
This is why it's nice as well with the primary school placements, because the primary schools also help students to understand how things are taught these days in schools, how homework is set, how to help children with homework, because they have this hands-on experience and therefore they've got the hands-on knowledge too.
So whilst I say 8, we do go above that, but because it's early childhood studies, benchmark statements, officially it's 0 to 8, but because of the diploma, we can do with what we like. We do put a lot more in terms of, how we're going to extend learning. So,
yeah, and it's worth emphasising that for your dissertation, you would need to focus on that 0 to 8 age bracket.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. On a similar note, I'll ask this one to you, Debbie. Are you taught how to adapt activities to be interesting and challenging to all age ranges, especially in families who have children with slightly larger age gaps?
Yeah, absolutely. We train you to work with all children any age, and as Lucy's already said, all children are unique. So what we do is we send you away with your nanny toolkit with lots of resources that you'll have made over the 3 and 4 years, and we'll show you how you can tailor those to work. So an activity that you can work with a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old with, and how you might adapt that and offer some stretch and challenge for children. So yeah, of course. And I can see that Lucy wants to say something.
Yeah, because the really key thing to emphasise as well is when you go to be a child's nanny is that it doesn't necessarily end when you leave that post. And as I've said at the beginning, I'm still in touch with Pops, and every year I've seen her on her birthday, socially distanced this year, of course. But in terms of planning her parties beyond nannying, I had to do that for a long time. So even that, thinking about what they want to do when they're 11 is very different to what she wanted to do when she was 4. So thinking about all of that differentiation right across the board is something that we do try to cover, but obviously that's a lot to cover. Yeah, but
we do it, and that was a nice segue in, Lucy, because we do teach you, don't we, to plan a party and the food to go alongside it from start to finish, and the budgeting, and so that can be any age range.
Great, thank you. I've got one here for Sky. Can you talk through like a typical day? How long is a lecture? How long are your sewing classes, etc.?
So it's a bit different at the moment, obviously. But at the moment, if we're having degree lectures, you'll have an hour and a half in a big group, and then you split off for another hour and a half in a little breakout room, and you do that twice in a day. And then for sewing and food lectures, which are on the same day, at the moment, I think they're an hour and a half. They were 2 hours last year, but just because of time, they've had to been cut down a little bit. But it all fits in really nicely, and they're separated out on days, so you only have degree on one day and diploma on another. For when you have to change uniforms and things. Obviously that's not happening at the moment, but normally you wouldn't have to come in and change uniform. You'd come in that uniform, stay for the whole day, and then come another day in the different uniform, which works really well.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, just to reiterate that the practical subjects of sewing and F&N currently under COVID timetable are an hour and a half, but usually they would be longer. And they're an hour and a half because we're teaching in small groups, and in order to get everybody in, it needs to be slightly shorter.
That's also been supported by an extracurricular group that's been started by a student called Abby, and it's a sewing group, a sewing circle that happens on Teams, and they just chat and sew and help each other out with basic stitches and things like that, which is quite a nice addition.
Oh, that's nice.
Great, thank you very much. Lucy, has anyone who has completed the degree gone on to do anything else? For example, another career choice?
As in other than a nanny?
Yes.
So yes, me. Obviously, I came to lecture here, but I know people who've gone to open nurseries, who do a lot of consultancy, so working with parents individually, maternity nursing. Somebody organised a children's party planning company, and there's a lot of creativity essentially with doing a degree at Norland. Some people go on to teaching at primary school, but that means an additional qualification, so PGCE. And what your degree also sets you up for is being in that position to do further study if you want to. So for example, this year I completed my master's in integrated working with children and families with Penn Green, and that's something that all of our students can do, and we're seeing much more of that now. They go on to further study with a view to doing additional things as well as being a private nanny, because the thing about being a private nanny as well is that once you start to settle down, maybe you have your own family and all that kind of thing, is that you might not want to work in somebody's home so much anymore, so you can think about other things that you can do within that. So there's an unending spectrum of things that you can do when working with children.
I can I just adding to what Lucy said, obviously Lucy's an Norlander. I know firsthand from my mum being an Norlander a bit longer ago, but you know, she was a nanny, and the degree, it wasn't a degree, it was the whole course was completely different when she trained, but she obviously nannied for a few years, 5 or 6 years, and then had me, so that kind of got in the way of it. But she then had her own family, but she's now running, I am biased, but a hugely successful nursery in Sussex. And so she, you know, and I always talk on the open days about how amazing her nursery is, and because I volunteered there when it's my half term and her school term, but I say to them it's because of her training at Norland, and that is why it's such an amazing nursery. But you know, and I think the important thing about Norland is obviously in the short term, maybe not something you'll think about, but in the long term, my mum is still keeping up with Norlanders. She's still very much part of the Norland family or community, because even 35 years later, it sticks with you for life. And I think that's such a wonderful thing about Norland, is that you'll always be part of the community that is Norland.
And to the placement team in Norland is as well. So it is a full circle where a lot of people actually come back to work in the place where it all started for them.
You can't shake us off. Once we come in, we never leave.
It's too good, you keep going back.
That's it.
I've got one here, Debbie. In the last 3 years, approximately, what is the percentage of students obtaining a first?
Well, actually, I can't pluck the data out of my mind straight off, but certainly the year that has just gone, we had an unprecedented amount of students getting first class degrees, which for the college is absolutely amazing. But then we start to unpick, well, why is that? Because there is a lot of talk in higher education about grade inflation. And a whole piece of research was done around those grades. And I can say hand on heart that every single student who got those first class honours degrees deserved them. We don't do grade inflation here. We have really strong standardization and moderation processes that you actually don't find anywhere else. So yes, very high proportions of our students will get a first class degree. But remember, we're teaching in small groups, and we're teaching something that we all feel passionately about, the lecturers as well as the students. And obviously that has a lovely ripple effect. So yeah, very high standards.
And I think it really demonstrates the necessity of a variety of assessment types in higher education, is the fact that in third year, for example, you have your dissertation, which is of course written, but then there is a presentation where you are talking about a nursery that you've designed and your leadership style within that and all that kind of thing. And then you have your vlog where you reflect on your time at Norland, apply reflective cycles, think about how that's going to influence your future career. So when you look at the spectrum of things available for you in your third year, it's not really surprising that students do really well in particular modules, and then that takes them up in terms of their classification.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Another one here, Debbie. How many students do you take each year?
We can take 100 a year. We can just go over that a little smidge, not too much, because to be quite frank, we have no more chairs. There's no room. So we can't really take any more than about 106, if I'm honest. As I say, that is just physically down to space and nothing more. So about 106.
Great, thanks, Debbie. And our last question, I thought it would be nice to hear from the students themselves. So this one, I'm going to start. I think Holly answered last time, so I'll let her go first this time. Why did you choose Norland over another university for the early years?
Yeah, I mean, when I came to look around Norland, it was so different, and it's so like there's such a family feel to the whole community of Norland, and it's great in the way that they're supportive and accommodating, and it really is the best. And so it was a quite clear choice to me. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Holly. Sky?
So I found out about Norland when I was 8 years old, and I've wanted to come ever since. So it was always kind of, that's what I'm going to do. I've always wanted to work with children. Before I knew about it, I wanted to be a teacher. And so it's always been my dream. So that's kind of why I'm here. And I just worked from when I was 8 to be here. So yeah.
Oh, lovely, thanks, Sky. And Nancy?
Yeah, I think seconding all of that, really. I mean, I've seen what my mum's gained from her training, and that was 30 years ago, and it's improved hugely, and it's just changed so much, the same way that childcare in general has changed over the years. But I think I looked into, I thought about other courses and other universities, but really what Norland offers, with the degree and the diploma, I don't think you can't get anywhere else, because all the practical sides of things, the placements, the food nutrition, the sewing, it's just, to me, it was a clear choice, and I wouldn't have wanted to go anywhere else. So.
Brilliant, thank you all for that. And one more has just popped in, and I'm going to ask to Lucy, when do we need to put our application in by, and how likely is it to be accepted?
I may be proven wrong by this, but I think the final UCAS applications are May or January.
Yeah, UCAS applications close it in January, but we often leave our applications open, so you can actually apply quite late on in the year.
Sure. That's the second part of that question. How likely is it to be accepted? It depends entirely on we interview every applicant, so it depends on your interview, and a student interview will ask you some questions, as you would expect from an interview situation. So think about the kind of things that we might ask you. They probably are that obvious. And there's also a sort of short presentation where you're asked to share an object. Now, the whole thing is about getting an idea of who you are and what your personality is like, what you know about Norland and what you're expecting from the situation, and to have a chat. So be prepared to give like full answers, and just be aware that we're not trying to catch you out. That's not the aim of the game. We just want to get to know you a little bit, because it's also a really good opportunity for us to identify that if you've got learning needs, putting you in touch with student support ahead of time and all that kind of thing. So it's hard to say how likely you are to get in on that basis, but yeah, just come and be yourself, to sound cliche, and chances are you probably will get in. Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks, Lucy. That's all the questions we now. So I'm going to hand back over to the staff and students there just to finish up. But thank you very much, guys. That was really, really interesting.
Thanks, Dan. So, well, thank you for watching our degree and diploma integration talk. Remember, there's a variety of talks going on throughout this week, so please do, book yourself onto the sessions, and hope to see you soon. Bye.